Hey, what's up everyone? Adam here with brahwegotthis, and today I want to share with you 5 keys of success that will help you improve as a DPS in ESO. These 5 keys are things that can objectively and subjectively help players improve their efficiency as the DPS role. Doing damage is an integral part of the Elder Scrolls Online, and so much of the player base chooses to be a DPS. So I'd like to help players maybe struggling to see the numbers that they want and hopefully improve your experience. Real quick, I want to give a massive shout out to all my patrons that support the channel. Thank you so much. If you'd like to become a patron, you can check out the link below in the description and you can get your name up here and many other perks. Also, you can join our Twitch stream, twitch.tv/brahwegotthis, our Discord, and our website, brahwegotthis.com. But I get a lot of questions on stream that are generally centered around, hey Adam, how do I increase my DPS? I'm stuck at 25k and I'm following a build and I just can't seem to push it beyond that. Always try to give a shortened or summed up response because it is not really as simple as, hey, just do this, and then do this. Because a lot of times it's a combination of a lot of little things that can actually help increase your DPS and increase your efficiency. Sometimes there are techniques or tips you can utilize that you maybe haven't even thought of, but they are practical tips. But the big thing I want to state before we jump into these are, I think a lot of players sometimes neglect the mid game in ESO, and I think they expect to go from beginner to high end game PvE overnight. And in ESO, especially for DPS, this just doesn't happen. You definitely need to understand how your build works, why it is using the skills that it's using, and honestly, you need to just play the build and have experience with it. The more you use the build, the better you will get at the rotation and every part about it. So with these 5 things, just keep in mind that all of these work together to help you have a better baseline. So the first thing that I want to go into, and it is a massive thing, is passives, okay? Something that I talk about for beginners is when you are leveling, not to worry about your passives because they take a lot of skill points and you don't necessarily need them as you're leveling up through the game. But as you start to get above, 50, CP 160, you can start putting points into these. But passives are an insane increase to the efficiency of how you're going to be, not just as a DPS, but really as a player in ESO. They have so much effect that I think people don't understand how important they are. So I'm just going to go through a few examples of, why passives are just so crucial for your build. So this is my Magicka Dragon Knight DPS, and this is my main account. And essentially, I just want to look at 2 passives on the Ardent Flame line here. One of them is Combustion. Combustion is going to increase the damage of your burning and poison status effects by 50%, okay? So 50%, you guys. And listen to this. When you apply burning to an enemy, you restore 1,000 magicka. When you apply poison to an enemy, you restore 1,000 stamina. These effects can occur once every 0.5 seconds individually of each other. So essentially, you can apply burning to multiple enemies at a time with a lot of the Dragon Knight's dots that they have. So you're going to just be able to restore magicka a lot of the time with this passive. This is huge. Just imagine if you didn't have this passive. A lot of people, I think, don't realize that when they slot their passives in, they don't realize the effect that they are getting sometimes. And these are crucial. Okay, another one that I really like is World and Ruin. Increase the damage of your flame and poison attacks by 5%. So that means that this is increased, this is increased, this is increased, that's increased, that's increased, that ultimate is as well, that is as well, this is increased, and this is increased. I mean, this passive is huge for a Dragon Knight. 5% extra damage is huge. 5% might not sound like a lot, but when you're using your skills over and over and over again every minute, you're going to eventually have that stack up to be a lot of extra damage. So this is another key aspect of why this is so important. Now I want to go to the light armor line real quick. I want to look at I want to look at evocation. Increase your magic recovery by 4% for each piece of light armor equipped. Current bonus 20%. So right now we have a 20% magicka recovery bonus because of the light armor we're wearing. This is amazing, okay? If you're struggling with sustain, if you're doing low DPS numbers, A big reason could be that you are running out of sustain. You could be running out of magicka, okay? You could be running out of stamina. And if you have very high magicka recovery and you have passives that are going to help you, that is just going to allow you to do more damage for a longer period of time. Okay, this also reduces the cost of magicka abilities by 2% for each piece of light armor. So we have a 10% cost reduction to our magicka abilities. So again, this is helping us use our abilities more efficiently, and it's allowing us to sustain longer. Sustain is a massive key part to being able to do more DPS, because if you run out of magicka, you can't do anything, right? As a magicka DPS, you really just can't do anything. And it's the worst feeling. So these are just some examples of why passives are so important. There are plenty of other passives here that are amazing, but really, if you're not slotting your skill points into your passives in your build above CP 160, you're really missing out on some key passive stats and also just active stats. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, the next thing I want to go into is traits. Okay, so when I was making this list, I'm going to get to a few things that I deemed that were maybe not as important, but they still are later on in the list. But I think traits are a massive thing. Traits are what you see on my armor here, right? You see the Divine's trait there. These traits, there are, I think, 9 traits in the game off the top of my head. And some of the traits are honestly just terrible for DPS. I mean, you can use them for role playing if you would like, or like, if there's other builds you want to make, like a stealing build or like a a sneaky build or something. There's traits that are better for that, right? But if you're wanting to make a DPS, there are a few traits that are typically the best traits, right? And so those are usually like infused or divines. I typically like going with divines, but I think people don't understand that when they have a combination of 7 pieces of gear plus your weapons and your jewelry, because your jewelry has traits and your weapons have traits, they think that, hey, like, it's not really going to make that much of a difference. It really does make a difference, you guys. Again, when I'm leveling, when I'm a beginner, when I tell beginners is when you're leveling, when you're going through the game, the traits are not going to make a massive difference. But when you start wanting to push your DPS, when you start or wanting to do harder content, you should start working on getting your traits. That's why researching is so important in this game, because if you're able to transmute items at a transmutation station, which is down here, or reconstruct items from your item set collection system, that is going to be very helpful for you. That way you have to do less farming, and obviously with the new RNG system, you don't have to do as much farming anymore. But reconstructing and transmuting are massive things in this game that really help you change your traits to where they're more ideal. But just to get put in perspective here, right? I have all divines except for these 2 right here. These 2 I still have to switch. This is training and this is sturdy. So this is a perfect example of I have 5 pieces of divines on my body piece here in my main account. Sturdy and training does absolutely nothing for me, okay? But if I put divines on those, I'm going to get 16.2% increased Mundus Stone effects, okay? Even more than what I have now. Right now I'm at 8, 16, 24, 32, 40.5% extra Mundus Stone effect, which my Mundus Stone effect is the Thief Mundus Stone, which is weapon and spell critical strike rating. So again, this number might not be massive, right? You might be looking at this and you're like, okay, what? It's going to increase it by a little bit more. Yeah, it will. But that makes a difference over time. I think a lot of people don't understand that these small numbers, they make a difference. Because say your critical strike rating was 1500, okay? That's 371 critical rating that you're not getting on every single ability that you use. That will stack up. If you get to a vet trial, if you get to a vet dungeon, if you're in a fight for 5 minutes, that will stack up. That is critical that you're missing out on, and it really does affect DPS. So traits are important. I seriously would not worry too much about them. Again, like if you're a very low level or you're just trying to learn your character, But when you get out of the overland and you start wanting to do vet dungeons and want to do trials and stuff like that, really start working towards getting your traits. The next thing I want to talk about is CP. And I'm not the guy that's like, okay, people that are 1000 CP are better than people that are 300 CP. I'm not that guy. Your CP level does not equate to your skill. It really doesn't. Okay, there's plenty of people out there that are really high CP and they're just playing the game, you know, the way they want to play it, and they're not necessarily, you know, a top player, but they're having fun, or, you know, whatever you want to say. But CP does matter, okay? And it really does, especially at lower levels. When you first get to like CP 160, if you compare the amount of extra passives that you're gonna get to someone who's CP 1000 like plus, like myself, there's a pretty massive difference, and I'm gonna show you why. Okay, so I'm gonna show you the 4 slottables that I have on the blue tree here. Okay, I get, from having Fighting Finesse maxed out and slotted, I get a 10% critical damage and critical healing done. That's massive. Like that is huge. 10% is a huge number. Okay, if you don't have, you know, if you have a CP 160, you might be able to get that. Let's see. Yeah, you technically would, I guess, be able to get this, but you wouldn't be able to get all this other stuff that I have here, right? So this is huge. And that's going to help a lot. If you look at Deadly Aim, increase your damage done with single target attacks by 2% per stage. I'm at 10%. That's it again. 10% more damage done with single target attacks. Huge. Okay, then you look at Thaumaturge, 10% more damage done for damage over time effects. Biting Aura, 10% damage done with damage for area of effect attacks. So these CP points really do matter. They're going to help. They're going to help mitigate damage. They're going to help increase damage, increase critical. They're going to help healing. Again, it's not just for DPS. This is for all roles. But this is a big part of it. Okay, so if you're at CP 160 or no, maybe CP 200 and you're not seeing some results, right? I would check off these things on the list that I'm giving you and be like, okay, I got my traits, I got my passives. Okay, let's work on my CP now. Okay, because what that's going to do is at least it's letting you know, okay, like, hey, I've got what I need for CP. I've got all these other things. Now, what's the next thing that I can do to help myself? So this is a big part of it. And it's okay. If you're not at CP 600 yet, it's fine. Just keep playing the game, take your time, and you'll eventually get CP pretty quickly. The next thing that I want to talk about, number 4, technically, and this one is the one that I was talking about that a lot of people I don't think about, because they're like, is that really going to help? And it's like, yeah, I think it does. And that is setting up your skill bar efficiently for how it works for you. Okay, everyone that has builds in ESO has their bar set up the way that they like it. Okay, and so I think a lot of people, what they try to do is they try to mimic the person's bar exactly the way that it's looking at, and the exact keybinds or whatever. That's not always the best thing to do, okay? Because some people, they just put, the standard builds out there, and then they put their skill bars out, and like you use that as a reference. You don't have to necessarily use every single thing to a T, and I think a lot of people think that they do because that's like part of it, but it's really not. And what I mean by that is I'm going to show you guys what I like to do, okay? I've shown my mouse on screen a lot. I'm not going to show it now, but I have a SteelSeries Sensei mouse that has 4 mouse buttons technically that I can use, but I use 2 of them. And instead of switching bar with tilde, I think it is the default on PC, I use one of my mouse buttons to switch bars, and that really helps me when when I am just playing the game. It's just very simple. I don't have to move my finger. I just literally use because my thumb sits right on the mouse. Okay, so that's something that really helps me. But another thing that I like to do is I like to align my skills on specific keybinds that I am used to using. And this goes across usually all of my DPS characters. And when it doesn't, I notice a difference in my performance. I seriously do. I notice a massive difference in my performance because they're not at the same spot. So what I mean by that is I like to put a lot of times on my damaging bar. So this is my first bar right here. I like to put a spammable damage ability on my 4 key, okay? Now, on my back bar, I don't have a spammable because a lot of times on the back bar, you just have dots and buffs and stuff, right? So I'm not worrying about it on my back bar too much. But on my front bar, I love putting a spammable on 4. The reason I like putting a spammable on 4 is because it's very simple to click, okay? 3 is kind of tough and 2 is kind of tough because when you're moving, right, WASD, when you're moving, you really, like, in my opinion, I feel like I can do most of my movements without having to press the D key. So 4 is a very simple movement because I'm able to just hit my force shock with the 4 key, and it's really, really simple for me, okay? Now, if I had to go to a 3, that means my finger's gonna cross over the top of the W key here, and it's just going to be very, very difficult. So that for me is something I really, really am big on, because on all my DPSs, I like to put a spammable on the 4 key because it's very easy to utilize, okay? Another thing that I like to do is on the back bar, I like to put my wall of elements or a dot on the other mouse button that is on my mouse that's not the bar switch. So my bar switch is mouse button 5, my dot is mouse button 4. That is really simple to use for me, okay? Another thing that I like to do is I like to put corresponding dots on the same number on each bar as well. So you'll see here, I've got Eruption on 2, and I've got Burning Embers on 2. I've got Barb Trapped on right here on 5, and Engulfing Flames on 5. So what I like to just do is it's very simple for me. You know, I'll lay down my Wall of Elements, I'll do my Ash Cloud, Barb Trapped, Flames of Oblivion, switch bars, Flames, and then I'll use my 2 key, if there was a target here, to use my Burning Embers, and that would allow me to do a dot there, and then I just use my spammable attacks, right? That is something that allows me to get in my mind, hey, on the 2 key and on the 5 key are my dots. So it's just like muscle memory at this point, right? A lot of times the 3 key, I like to put skills that I don't use as much. So Harness Magicka is like a shield that I'll use sometimes, and then Whip if I am doing this variant of it, where if I get 3 of the Ardent Flame abilities, you know, I can use it every 3 attacks, right? So I like to do that as well. But another reason why I like using the mouse button switch is because, like, when I lay down my Wall of Elements, I can switch bars immediately, and it's so simple. Set up your skill bar the way that is beneficial for you. I think it's something, again, that a lot of players don't understand, that you don't have to have the exact same skill bar as a content creator out there. Like, they create builds for you, and those builds are references and templates. Find a way to customize it that fits you. You know, if you just can't use mouse and keyboard, use a controller. You know, if you find that you can hit other keys easier, use other keys, right? Everyone's different, okay? So find what works for you, and I'm telling you, okay, I'm telling you, stick with that and use that template for all your DPSs, and you will do better. I'm serious. It is a massive help. Okay, before we get to the last thing, I want to talk about a few things that I didn't put in the list that I still think are important, but I just didn't put all these because I wanted to keep it at 5, but I just wanted to mention these, okay? I want to say that first of all, your enchants on your armor and your item quality of your armor and weapons do matter, okay? But I do think these kind of, again, are all kind of culminated into one. Armor quality, as long as you have purple armor and, you know, purple weapons, and you're gonna be fine, okay, in most content, right? Now, for weapons, I would recommend getting them to gold eventually when you know that you want to use them, because that is gonna help you a lot. Jewelry, I never go for gold jewelry unless I get it from a drop. Purple is fine, but I think quality is a big thing that I think people don't realize. It actually does help. It's really nice. Another thing, again, is your enchants. I think enchants are pretty simple though, because if you're using the corresponding armor, right, that you need for DPS, like if you're a Magicka DPS and you're using light armor, it's always usually going to come with max Magicka enchants. You don't have to worry about that as much. So I didn't really put that in the list because it's just like, a lot of times I think people don't realize that. But for tanks and healers, it's a little bit more different, because for tanks you use different enchants a lot of times, a lot of mix and matching, because you want to get the right resources. So for DPS, it's usually, you don't have to worry about it too much, but they still do help. And the other thing is race, okay? Race is a big thing, but my rule of thumb with races is I tell people that obviously if you're not min-maxing, it doesn't really, you know, it's not going to be the end of the world. But I will say that if you want to do hard content, if you want to do vet content, you want to do vet trials, it's still beneficial. It is obviously still beneficial for you to pick a race that is somewhere in the ballpark of what you're trying to do. So if you're trying to be a stamina DPS and you pick a Breton, you really are going to kind of hinder yourself a little bit. Now, if you pick a stam DPS and you play Orc, Nord, Khajiit, High Elf, Dark Elf, I think all 5 of those races are going to give you some sort of benefit. Now, there's going to be a clear race that's going to be better, but I think that it's something that you have to just kind of figure out, okay, can I get in the ballpark of something that's going to be beneficial? So with saying all these things, okay, if you've went down this list and you're like, okay, Adam, I've got my passives, I've got my traits, I've got my CP, I've got my bar set up the way that I like it, and I found a good way, I've got my race, the one that I think is efficient enough for me, I've got my enchants all good, my quality's looking good. I'm still struggling to hit some of these numbers. Okay, well, first thing I'll say is if you've got all that, you should see from when you started, you should still see an increase, okay? I believe that. I do really believe that. Because when you have all that other stuff, it's mixed and matched, and then you put it all together, it is a significant increase to your DPS. But here's where it all culminates to. And a lot of people, they don't like hearing this, and they don't like, wanting to do this really. But the last key of success for DPS is you have to practice, and you have to learn how to get efficient with animation canceling and light attack weaving. Now, I'm telling you guys right now, I'm not the best animation canceller and light attack weaver. And the reason I'm not is because I don't practice it every day, okay? And I will say that with mediocre light attack weaving and animation canceling, I've cleared almost all the content in this game, okay? Barring some vet trials and some vet DLC achievement runs, right? It's something that I don't think about a lot of the time because it's something that over time I've learned, and I've learned like the basics of, but this is what sets people apart with DPS numbers. If you truly want to hit the highest numbers that people are promoting, you have to practice this, okay? If you want to stay down in the mid-range area, you don't have to practice it all the time. You could just play the game and learn over time. But animation canceling and light attack weaving is basically the pinnacle at the top of once you've got all the baseline stuff, you have to put it all together, and you have to utilize that to give you that extra bump. Now, I think a lot of players think that you can't do DPS if you can't animation cancel or light attack weave. And that's not necessarily true. Again, you don't have to be super efficient all the time, but as you play the game, you can learn just basics of it, and it can help you increase. The tips that I want to give you with light attack and light attack weaving and animation canceling is, first of all, there's a lot of guides out there that can help you with this. There's people out there that know more about this than me and that are better at this than me. So I would definitely look for that. But the thing that I can tell you, and the biggest tip that I've learned, is that when you animation cancel and light attack weave, it's about timing and it's about a rhythm, okay? So, and setting up your bar efficiently is going to help you with this as well. So again, like I said, if you need to switch bars, right, I can do my Wall of Elements and switch bars immediately, right? I can do Flames of Oblivion, switch bars immediately. See that? So when I switch bars, look, Flames of Oblivion, switch bars. My flames already went off. That is going to be helping you, increase DPS and all that stuff. But something that I have learned is that canceling your light attacks and your skill animations and all that stuff, it's all about timing and rhythm. So if you want to do Searing Strike, but you want to put a light attack before it, you would need to click your mouse button and Searing Strike, right? Now to speed that up, just put the intervals in which you click closer together. So I'm going to click Searing Strike. You see that right there? It canceled part of the light attack and it did Searing Strike. So look, light attack, Searing Strike, light attack, Searing Strike, light attack, Searing Strike. It's bump, bump. Like that. That is the rhythm, right? Like that. That is one of the biggest tips that I can give you, that I have learned myself from other content creators and just playing the game, is that when you try to cancel, when you try to weave, it's about rhythm. okay? And that rhythm takes time and it takes practice. And that's the simple fact about it. Now, again, an honorable mention to all this as well is item sets. Item sets are obviously big deals in the game. And if you don't have item sets that work with each other, that is also something that can be a factor. But I think that the 5 things that I went over, especially the first 4, if you can get those baselines down, like your passives, your CP, your traits, and your setting up your bar efficiently, that right there is going to set up a great baseline for you as a DPS. After that, I think it comes down to making sure that, you have item sets that you can work well with. I think it comes down to, practicing your rotation and animation canceling and line attack weaving and just getting more efficient with it, because that is what's going to set you apart. So I hope that this video helped you out. I know we went a little long with it, but I really hope that it helps. I really hope that it gives you insight on like, hey, like these are actually important things, because I think a lot of times these little things that we think about, and I've been a person that's thought before like, these things don't matter. Like I don't need to worry about passives and stuff. But I've found that like, no, like, you really need to learn about these. You really need to know about these, because those little things really add up over time and they really will affect your overall output. So I hope this video helped. If it did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, heavy attack that bell icon to stay up to date on all the content in the channel. And again, leave me a comment below letting people know like, hey, like this is what I do to do better DPS. This is what this is a tip I would give. I'd love to hear it down in the comment section. But until next time, y'all, just remember to have faith, be great, and I'll see you on ESO.